All right. So, welcome and happy new year 2025. This is our first art for 2025. So, it's pretty cool that it snowed today and we're doing a wintry winter rabbit watercolor. We need to have obviously watercolor paper, like I mentioned. Your brush size will be or should be a bigger brush size, between 8 and 10. Depending on the company. Like I always say, the companies, there's not like a mainstream size that they go by, which is kind of unfortunate, but should be like between an 8 and a 10 and a round brush. So if you see that, basically your bristles will come to a point, which is a round brush. If you have a flat brush, that's okay too. We're just really going to be kind of doing the background and basically the snow with this brush. Our rabbit is actually with colored pencils for the most part. And the three colored pencils you need are black, blue, and brown. I'm just using Crayola, and it's just like almost like a navy blue, but it's just called blue in Crayola. But if you're looking for the color, it's more like a darker blue rather than a lighter blue. Um, and the brown is more like it's like a darker brown. You can vary it if you want, depending on what colored pencils you're using, but and we're basically just using, blue watercolor. And we're also going to be mixing it with some brown and black as well. So it's a very sort of monochrome piece. You're welcome to add other colors in. You're always welcome to do something different. When I teach something. So we are going to get started now. And basically, you want to hold your paper in landscape mode. So I'm going to turn my paper around. I'm also going to make sure that it's not too fuzzy because I feel like, okay, I feel like I'm a little bit further away and I need to be a little closer. There we go. All right, so I'm going to move this over. And so in landscape mode, what our basic drawing is going to look like is something like this. We're going to do sort of the outline of our rabbit. Obviously, this is a little bigger than what I did in my sample, but I just wanted to make sure that you could see it. So basically, we're going to be doing this basic shape. You're going to be doing it lightly, like I always mention. I always do it darker so you can see it on Zoom, but yours should be barely pencil marks because watercolor is very transparent. So we're going to start off first with figuring out where we want our rabbit. And our rabbit is kind of on a bit of a slope. So if I take my pencil next to where the rabbit is, right, it's not straight, it's a little bit upward. So we're going to position our rabbit in the middle of our paper, making sure that we have enough room up top because we're going to be making, kind of the pencil mark for the snow area. So I'm going to make it about right here. So if I move my paper up, just so you can see, here's the bottom of my paper. And I'm going to go maybe a little less than halfway. And I'm just going to make sort of a line like this. And that's where we're going to park our rabbit. So once you have that done and figured out, we're now going to add in the shape, the basic shape of our rabbit. We'll go back and make it look more rabbit-like, obviously. But we're going to start off and make the basic shape. So we're going to start here on the left side. And here again, I'm going to be making it darker so you can see it. But we're just going to make I used the wrong pencil here. Actually, that's okay. I thought I didn't have an eraser. So we're making our rabbit go up a bit, and we go right into his ears. And here again, you're going to be creating this very light. So this is his first ear. And I'm going to go in a bit closer now. I'm also going to straighten out my camera. I see that it's kind of tilted here. There we go. It's funny, you don't teach for 3 weeks and it's like you kind of forget how to do things. It's like, oh yeah, I have to straighten out my camera and I've got to make sure they can see. Oh. So our first ear, and then we're also going to add the second ear back here. And again, we're just kind of doing basic, kind of like a basic outline here. And then we've got the longer kind of face shape on our rabbit. And then we even add the body in. And it's kind of like, he's fluffy. And then we come down to the ground. I'm going to make my ground just a little bit lower here. And we can get into making, it a little more realistic afterward. But this is sort of our basic shape of our rabbit here. And so this is the back part towards where the ears are. So we kind of want to make sure that that reads as the back part. He's got, it's sort of like a hump over here. And then we have his ears kind of, he's a little bit back with his head. And so that should be your basic shape. Just want to make sure everybody's caught up. It's so good to see everybody. Charlene, Renee, Michelle. So good to see you. It's been a while. It's awesome. Crystal, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Winona and Jean, Michael, Joanne, and Tammy. Tammy, I'm so curious if you got any snow being in a different part of the country. Debbie.
We did not, and I'm very happy about it.
I know you are. I said to Tammy last year, she was getting a lot of snow last year, and I was like, I will take all of your snow. I'm sure all of you would probably say, no. I was like, I will take all the snow. And hi, Kim. I meant to say hi to you too. Well, that's good. That is good. Okay, so now that we have this basic shape of our rabbit, the other thing is, so coming here toward the back, we're going to now sort of, we've got the basic shape of him drawn in. We're now going to get into some more details. So this is where we want to make it look more furry, more like there's fur on the edge here. So if you take a look at this up close, you can see that the way we create fur is we kind of, instead of having just a round flat line for the back end of him, you're going to start kind of moving your lines in as if you are creating almost like individual pieces of fur. You're not going to do it that much, but so basically, you're then going to lighten up your line that we drew. And you're going to start making, I'm going to go in closer now, even closer so you can see. And we're now going to start to make, it look like fur by kind of going in and out. And I'm going to make this darker so you can see. So you can see here that I'm making kind of furry lines. And then maybe I make a little bit of the line a little bit kind of scraggly going towards the end because he's kind of sitting on his fur. And I might want to make it a little bit shorter. I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. It was getting a little bit too much kind of running in a little bit. And then from that, I'm also going to fix a little bit of the bottom here because I want to make it look like clumpy snow, but I'm going to make it a little bit more detailed. So I'm just going to kind of change up the bottom a little bit because we still have to add his legs, you know, just really lines for the legs in a way. And yeah, I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. Yours may be fine. I just wanted to kind of bring mine down a little bit. And then I'm going to make it go up a little more. And here I'm going to add a little bit more of some chunky, kind of a chunky snow area. Just like that. So it's just some simple additions there. And let me move this up so you can see the original as well. Okay, so now once we did that, we're now going to go back up to his head and we're going to make the eyes. So here we are right at the start of his ears. We also want to kind of make a little bit more of the shape, just a little bit better. So basically we kind of curve and go inward and then outward again so that that shape is going to look a little more like that. We have a bit of a curvy line just to indicate his nose. See, and all of a sudden that should look a little more like a rabbit. And then from there is where we're going to start with the eye. So we're going to follow or put our pencil down here where the nose is, but we're going to start to move up a little bit and the eye is going to sit right up towards kind of where that bend that we just created, a little bit in between. And I like to make sort of like an elongated football shape like this. It's going to look a little creepy. I'm going to go a little closer. He's going to look like a little creepy rabbit at first, but I promise it's going to look cute eventually. Because we're going to make the eye. It's kind of just going to be a curve right there. That still looks creepy, but I promise it won't look as creepy. So basically what you want to do is this part is the curve. This is going to stay white, the white part of the eye, and then this is going to be filled in a bit. But not yet. Okay. So now we're going to go to the rest of the fur here. And you're just going to lighten it up a little bit. And you're just going to do the same thing that we did over here on the left. You're just going to make it a little more fur-like. And by that, very light lines, incredibly light lines that are looking like fur. And his belly is going to kind of hit the bottom here of where the snow is. So I'm just going to kind of show that up close. So you can see I've just made some, you know, kind of light lines to indicate fur. And you can see that his body is kind of a little bit at a slant, right? His belly is here. His fur that's sticking out is kind of up towards his nose area. And then we're going to go to the body part. And we're now going to make his sort of his leg. So we're going to start here. Now his leg is kind of, we see like a bit of a curve back. And then we go downward because his foot is in the snow. And then we come over here to make the other part of his leg. And again, because his foot is kind of in the snow, there's a little bit of a curve here, but you can see where that's the other part. You know, he's kind of hunched over, leaning. And so these are just indications of what his legs are doing. And then he's a little bit buried in the snow here too. His belly is over here. And then this is his hind leg here. And again, we're going to go back and we're just going to shade it a little more to look more like it. And then this is the rest of his kind of leg sitting backward. And this is his bum. He's got his little fuzzy rabbit butt. And so what we're going to do at this point is we're now going to lighten up all of those lines because we're now going to go in with our colored pencils. So we're going to do our colored pencils, but we're also going to add just a little bit of some watercolor before, well, actually right after we lighten up all of our lines. So let's lighten up all of our lines by, taking our eraser, and we're just going to very lightly kind of, you're not erasing the lines completely, but you're just lightening them up because we're going to go over them in with the other colored pencils. You're going to do the same with the snow. So you're just kind of erasing a little bit. You're going to do the same with his eye. So everything just gets a lot lighter. You can see on my page, it's a lot lighter. Okay, so next we are going to do our watercolor background. So you can see in the other one, we also have snowy parts, right? So we have the kind of snowy sky. We've got these parts which are lighter watercolor at first, almost like very watery, right? Just an indication. You can kind of see that too. I know it's kind of hard to see, but if I tilt it, you can see that, here's the white of the paper, and we've got very light blue to indicate the shadows on the snow. So we're going to start off with very light blue first. And the way we're going to get that is we're going to take our watercolor palette here. You can see mine is dirty. So I'm going to use this spot over here. And basically the color that we want, so depending on which watercolors you're using, I'm using basic Crayolas, so I have to mix my colors. But the blue that you want is going to be more of a darker blue, which is not in the Crayola set. The blue that you get in Crayola is that. It's more of almost like an aquamarine or like a turquoise blue. So I'm going to water that down. And then I'm going to add black. And so it's going to be a richer blue. So if you have that color somewhere, again, maybe you don't have a Crayola pack or you have another watercolor set, you can achieve that color. It's like a darker blue, but it's got black mixed into it. And so you want that color. You want a darker blue. Now, if you don't have that blue, that's okay too. Yours will just look a little different, which is kind of cool. So no worries. But now you want it to be nice and watery. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to just take the tip of our brush and dip it in. The reason is because we want the top part to be very flowy, very light at first. So now when we apply our color, we're first going to kind of outline. So see how light that is? The lightest, it's like a very light application. We're going to go around the rabbit's body. We're also going to go around the snow. And what we haven't done yet is create the other part of the snow. And we're going to do that using our watercolor brush. So what I mean is, let's go over here. We're going to outline the ears. See, and you can see I'm doing it very lightly at first. You're going to outline around the nose. And then when you get to the chest area, you're going to create another slope with your paint just for now. So you can kind of see that in the light. I just kind of went upward, and now you just created a slope for the background of your sky. And now we're going to work on our sky. Actually, before we do that, since we're already into the light part, you're going to dip the tip of your brush in again. And you're going to start making splotches of color in the snow. So the way I achieved that was I just did a little bit with the tip of my brush, and then I dipped my brush in water to make it lighter. And I'm going to go in different sections to make it look like the snow is, there's different parts of the snow. And maybe in one part, I want to color it in a little bit. I'm going to add some more water here so that it's even lighter. And then finally, we're going to come up to the pencil drawing that we did of the snow. And we're going to go up against it and make the shadow in two places. It's kind of a simple drawing, but I think it's fun. So yeah, just decide where you want to put some more of those shaded areas. Now you can always go back and add more if you like, but we're now going to go to around the background. So now we're going to dip our brush in a little more, not just the tip. And I like to start and go around in circles and then add water so that it gives it a kind of a snowy and kind of a almost like cloudy look to it. And you're now going to go around your whole sort of background. And that's your first layer. And you're going to get darker, as you apply it. This is just the second, the first kind of layer. And you can make it kind of fade out by adding water to the edges of your paint. See, it looks very light. So that's our first layer. And you're going to let that dry by bouncing it up and down. If you have a hair dryer, you can do that, but I prefer the bouncing up and down method. You want that first layer to kind of dry, because then you want to be able to add a little bit darker on the other layers. Again, it's rather a simple drawing with a simple background. We do mostly swirls of the watercolor paint. It's almost dry. And then you want to start adding some darker layers. And you can add a little more black so that you get more of a gray, and you're going to put that toward the bottom right of your underneath the rabbit's kind of like face and where the snow is. Ooh, Michael, that looks awesome. Very nice. Ooh, I like your rabbit too. Very nice. Impressive. And I like to kind of blend that color a little on top. I also like to then kind of go in the parts that are a little bit closer to the rabbit. So here's another section right where his ears are, this ear. I like to go in and I added that darker color again, and then a little bit along the edge of him, his back, and then also where the snow is. And then I'm going to start adding some more dark swirls into it. This is the blue, but I added a little bit more black to it. Adding that on top. And I like to go a little bit darker for some reason towards the right side of the painting. Oops, my camera got fuzzy. There we go. Got a little out of focus there. And you can start to kind of swirl it around, make the background a little bit larger if you want. And then again, to fade it out, you would just take water and blend out the edges. Gonna blend it a little more over here. And then I like to blend a little bit of, his right where we added the dark, blend that a little bit and then let that dry, because then we start a third layer. Watercolor is all about layers. So there's just a little bit of some dry time in between. Just realized I have another piece of watercolor paper underneath. I guess I thought I was going to make 2 rabbits tonight. So bounce, bounce, bounce. Nice. So, if you wanted to get a little more fancy, you could add salt to this. It gives like a snowflake effect for those of you that, have been with me for a while. I love to use salt on watercolor, especially when it's with snowy backgrounds, stuff with galaxies, even though I don't think I've done any galaxy work with the adults. It's mostly with kids, but it just gives it a really neat texture. But you don't have to, because you then kind of have to wait for it to dry and peel it off, because the salt gets stuck to the back of it. But it is a nice addition, later on if you wanted to add it. You could if you wanted to. You don't have to. So then I just want to go in one more time and add a little bit darker. So now I'm adding, I like to add a little bit of brown now to that mixture. So I'm just going to show this. I'm just going to add a little bit brown into that black and blue mixture. And then I'm going to add it again right where the darker parts are right here. And then this is why we add, you know, some brown and some black. So now I really want to get kind of close to his face here, bottom of it, and just also, I'm now going to go in and I'm going to go in to make it look like the fur, you know, that it's furry. So here, like this. Seeing how it looks kind of furry. Let me do that a little more. And then I'm going to start to do that on the other side as well. So I kind of like cut into the white of the rabbit just a little bit. And you can see I'm kind of using my pointy, kind of the edge of the brush here. And then I'm going to also go around just one section of the back of the ears here with a little bit more of dark. And then I'm just going to add a little bit here. We're just adding some shadow parts here. And then I like to come again toward the back where the snow is. And again, remember I added some brown to this. So I'm just kind of making it a little bit darker. Oops, that was a little bit too much brown. It's okay, I can fix that. Here again, you can blend by just adding a little bit of water. I'm also going to now go into the grass, sort of the grass coming out of the snow in this area. I'm also going to use that color. It's that, you know, sort of dark bluish with the brown color. And there's a section here on the snow where we want to kind of use the tip of our brush almost like a pencil. And we're going to kind of make little lines to make it look like it's kind of grass-like. So, and sometimes I then start to kind of do that a little bit on the snow, kind of make these really light, sort of grass-like areas. And I'm also going to go up towards the snow where our rabbit is sitting. And we're going to add a little bit of blue to him as well before we start to add our final, we start to get into our pencil marks. So here again, so far what we've done is we've done our background. We've added some darker areas to the sections. Like for instance, one right here, you can see that is a combination of blue, black, and a little bit of brown. That's over here. Then on the left side, on the back end of the rabbit, we added the same thing, but a little more brown. So there's a little bit of a touch of brown in there. And then the other thing that we've done is we've added sort of some grasses that are kind of coming up through the snow over here. And then, you know, we've added some very small, kind of little areas of, in a way, it's kind of like grassy little areas throughout the snow here. And then finally, we've come up to where our rabbit is sitting in the snow. And we just added just a little bit of light blue along here. Okay. And then we're going to go into the rabbit a little bit before we create sort of the colored pencil part. So then we want to get into that darker blue stuff that we have. Now you may have to mix a little more if you've run out. I've run out a little bit, so I'm just going to mix a little more. And again, that is blue and black if you're using Crayola. Just a little bit. And we're just going to do the tip of our paintbrush. So we're going to come to the part where we have the rabbit sitting in the snow. And we're going to come down to the bottom here of where his leg is. And we're just going to add a little bit of some shading here. And it should be really light. So if you need to, lighten it up a little bit with some water, you can do that. So there's some shading there. And then we're also going to shade just a little bit right here too. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to now go around the rabbit on this side. And we're just going to make sure that we have kind of an outline, but we also want to make some, little bit of fur here at the bottom by doing the same thing that we did before. How we took our brush and started adding kind of some blue strokes in the fur to make the edge look furry. So we're going to do that kind of like underneath his nose. And then we're also just going to make sure that we kind of outline his head and this side outside his ears. And then we're going to let that dry. So we're going to take about maybe 4 minutes to let that dry. Our next section is going to be sort of the final application, where we're going to be using our colored pencils. So you want to make sure that he's pretty dry. If you need to get a drink, use the facilities, now's the time to do that before we start our next and final part. And you can just let this dry for about 4 minutes. I kind of like to turn my paper side to side because you can see, when it's not shiny anymore. Our heat is rather drying in the house, and I'm sure yours is too. So things will dry, paint will dry faster. So that's why I said it's probably only going to take like 4 minutes. to do so. Sections over here. And just double check. You also want to make sure that your 3 colored pencils are nice and sharp. So if they are not, you want to do that now. So again, that is black, blue, and brown. I gotta fix my camera here. I was a little off kilter, or off kilter, I should say. We're gonna give it about 1 more minute. I had a little panic for a minute. I thought to myself, "Oh, did I press record on this for the others that aren't able to make it this evening?" And I just saw that the record button's on. So that's good.
Yes, you did.
Thank you. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I remember thinking that I had to record. I had quite a few people reach out tonight that couldn't make it but registered. So, and then we always have people that wait for the recording. So it's important that I remember to record. Okay. Give it 1 more minute. And then I think we're probably ready to go. Again, just double check your space. It should probably be pretty dry. Okay, so the first pencil we are going to start with is going to be black. Again, you want to make sure these are nice and sharp to a point, because we're going to start with the eye of our rabbit here. And I'm going to start moving in closer, but I'm going to show you the original first. So, oops, where am I here? Okay, so with the eye, so we're going to be making some very light marks, but first we're going to go to the eye where and the nose. And those marks are darker. A lot of the other markings are very light, as you can see. The darkest parts are really, in the middle of the ear there, little at the top of this ear, and obviously in the eye. So let's start with the eye. So you're going to grab your black, and I'm going to move this over and go very close. So we're going to outline the eye using the black. So you're going to press down. We're going to outline, and remember, what we want to do is make that curve of the eye over here, and then you're going to fill in the whole left side, but making it a little more curvy, like a circle. You may have to add a little bit of, maybe you need to make it a little bit bigger. But for now, that's what you want. So really simple, just adding that part to the eye. We've got shading that goes around it, but for now, you're going to add that dark part to the eye. We're also just going to skip over to the 2 ears for now, and we're going to kind of outline a little bit of those ears. We're going to start with this one, and we're going to outline the top part, kind of like this. So we're almost like we're just kind of drawing the top part of the inside of the ear on that one. And then we're going to put our black down for now, and we're going to grab our blue. Again, you want to make sure you have a nice tip on it. You're going to go around the eye. So we're going to make some shading around the eye. And so it's going to go at the top part and kind of around like this. He looks like he has a little bit eyeshadow on. He's a fancy rabbit. And then we're going to hold on to this blue for now. We're going to make the first shading parts with our blue. So we have, everything is kind of layered in this as well. So if you kind of look at the ear, there's blue underneath, and then we've got some brown and black. That's happening a lot in a lot of our shadows. See, there's blue here for the base, but then you've got some brown on top of it. And then even some parts, a little bit of black, mostly the ears. So with that being said, taking our blue, we're going to go into the ears. Go really close here. So we're going to start off with this one. And we're going to make sure that the edge of it is a little more blue, just a little bit. And then we're going to now go into the inside of this ear, and we're going to make it the inside of the ear. We're going to kind of draw it with the blue and then color in the section of it. We're going to stay on that side because we're then going to make, you know, he's leaning here. He's kind of leaning his head back against his body. So there's a little bit of some of sort of a, you know, a part of his neck a little that is kind of scrunching up. So here's his body, and we're going to just make a little bit of a line there for that part of, you know, to make it look like his head is leaning back. And now along the edge of him. So we're now going to go along his back here, his fur. And we're going to, first we're going to shade a little bit of blue up here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start shading in sections of the fur. So for instance, here we're going to shade and make it come into the white of the fur. You see how it's looking more, again, like kind of like fur. And then when we get to the bottom, we're just going to very lightly shade. If you notice, I'm kind of going to the side, using my pencil a little bit to the side. We're going to stay at the bottom here as we continue with this blue. So we're going to come here And we're gonna shade a little over here, his back leg. We're gonna switch on over to this side. This is his belly area. And we're gonna shade right on top of where we already added the blue. And then we're gonna go up just a little bit. And we're gonna shade up to kind of the back of his leg. And this is just a little bit of blue. Right? We're just giving a slight indication of some shading. We're going to do the same now here on top of this blue, but we're going to outline a little bit of his leg here. And now we're going to go right next to it. We want to add some, other tufts of hair. And in order to do that, we kind of have to kind of scribble a little bit and make it a little darker in like one section. So see what I did there? I kind of made it a little bit darker like that. Now we're continuing kind of going around our rabbit. So we're going to kind of go on the edge here, but we're going to add another little puffy fur part here like this. And then under his, the part that's furry, we're also going to add kind of a shadow to outline the bottom of this face. See what I'm doing? How I'm kind of going really light lines, going back and forth to make that shadow. So I just went like that. That's how I got that shadow. We're going to do the same thing as we meet up again towards this area, because there's another shadow. I'm going to make a line here. And then we're going to shade kind of up into his ear, just in that section. You see how he's starting to come to life. And then we're going to go into this ear with the blue. So we're going to start up at the top, make it a little darker up right at the point there. And we're going to kind of outline, do the shape of his ear. But we're going to leave the other side more white. And now we've got some really light shading parts. So I'm going to flip over to the original here so I can show you. Incredibly light shading parts, right? We're going to do that a little bit in here, even though we're going to go over that more in brown. We're going to do it here, but let's start with the fur. So again, really light. We're going to do really light shaded parts to make it look like even more fur. So I'm taking my pencil and I'm really lightly just adding light strokes. We're going to clump it together in certain parts, especially towards his back. So it's almost like we're shading a little bit, but we're also adding some texture. Sometimes we get a little darker. It's almost like we are kind of like making dots, but not really. Instead, we're making kind of scribbles. You're going to go on his leg and shade a little bit where it bends. And again, little kind of dots of hair underneath on his chest, the blue. And then we're going to go into the snow. We're going to go into the snow, and we're going to just outline a little bit this section here. And basically we're making strokes like grass, a little bit darker. And then we're going to put our blue down and pick up our brown when you're ready. So first we're going to start on the snow with this one. We are, ending with our brown. We'll have a little bit of black in the ears, but we're almost here. We're going to go into the snow. So let me lift this up. Basically, we're going to outline the edge of the snow on the rabbit side. So you may have to, color in a little bit as you're outlining, but you're going to outline. And as you can see, I'm not going in a straight way. I'm sort of, coloring as I outline. Let's not forget behind him, right up against the sky, you also want to outline, and you want to make it look a bit like, a hill. So you can start to add some shading there. And you are going to add shading right up against your rabbit and into the snow here, into the shadowy part. Shadow of him, with the brown would be a little bit darker right where he's sitting in the snow. So right here. You're also going to use that brown to go over again or add a little bit of shading on top of the blue where his little haunches are kind of going in the snow. So I've got my pencil pointing towards that section. You're also going to now go over here and just do a little bit of an outline, again, against the snow, and adding a little bit of shading with the brown against the snow. We're going to flip over onto the snow, and then we'll come back and finish the rabbit. So we now want to add some just light kind of areas in the snow that are going to look like it's ground, so like, kind of curving parts. And then this is also where you're going to add some grass coming out. So you can scribble and then go up. Scribble and then go up. Scribble, go up. And you can go in different directions. You can also add more, you know, as you're going down into the snow. I like to add a little bit in some of the shadowy parts that we already painted with the blue. Then we're going to take our brown and we're going to outline toward the back of our rabbit. So we're going to take our brown, and by outlining, we're going to make it furry again. So just like we did with our blue, we're going to kind of almost scribble, but then go in towards the sections of fur that are kind of separating. And on the sky side, you know, you can start to add a little bit of brown with your colored pencil. And going right into the back of his neck with the brown. And you're going to add a little bit of shading on top of the blue. Right on the back of his neck. And you're going to start doing that, you know, on in his, you know, on the parts that you used the blue on in the fur. You can kind of very lightly just add some brown shading to it, especially on the back end of his fur. You can kind of scribble a little bit of brown there. And again, on his, you know, on his belly. And in between where his leg kind of meets his belly, you can sort of make a little bit of, you know, that part of his leg a little darker if you want with the brown. We're going to go into his face, and we're going to add some little hairs sticking on top of the blue. So going like this. This is with the brown. We're going to outline his little part of the nose here with the brown. That's brown. We're going to add a little bit of shading brown kind of around where his eye is on the top. And that's going to lead us into kind of the edge of his face, and that's going to go into his ear, where we're also going to add the brown using quick lines, and then especially making it darker at the top of the ear. You're going to do the same in the other ear, a very light shading of brown on top of the whole section of the blue. And then you're finally going to put your brown down and grab your black. Your black is going to be, the last part that we just add a little bit of darkness to. We're going to come back to the back of him. And we're going to just do a little bit of an outline of his fur right here in the back of him. And then we're going to go kind of in the center of his ear. Not really the center of his ear. It's kind of like this part. We're going to make a curve up to the top of his ear. And then from that, we're going to make it look like fur coming from both sides. Like that. And then you're going to make it a little darker again. Sometimes I like to outline the top of the other ear with the black too. You can make his other eye a little darker if you need to. I like to kind of make the corners where it's kind of at the bottom of his eyes. Make those a little darker. So I'm so curious to see what everyone's looks like. I'm going to remove my spotlight. Move my spotlight, or spotlight, not stoplight. And I'm going to stop the recording.